Yeah, there you go, Mandy. Hi, Mandy. Sorry, Mandy, I know that you're pressed for time. I just wanted to say to the folk that are listening that I first came across Mandy at an online event where you spoke for the CADA group, the Coalition Aid and Development Agencies in Belfast, and thank you so much for doing that. Just by way of background, Mandy is an award-winning philanthropist, community consultant, and global campaigner. Mandy is an international human rights activist and motivational TEDx speaker from the UK. Mandy has traveled all over the world, empowering and motivating others with over 3 decades of experience, and as an expert in various development fields. She has been driving innovation, building strategic partnerships, promoting advocacy and programming in the areas of human rights, gender equality, accountability, and social justice. So, Mandy, please, off you go. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, first of all, for inviting me, Denny, and Esther, fantastic work that you're doing in Uganda. And actually, as we come out of this pandemic, there has been several other shadow pandemics which you've touched upon around domestic violence, around mental health, and around abuse. And actually, as we are dealing with the pandemic, we have seen that actually a lot of people have been suffering in silence, and there has not been enough resources globally. And as you said about early child forced marriage, and there's been so many other issues that have been going on in silence. But we've also seen a lot of people being exploited and being trafficked across the globe like never before. We have seen people being trafficked for, for cheaper goods and labor and for cheaper sex. And we need to address this issue. We can no longer allow these things to happen. And we have seen that the Roma community, the traveller community has been really affected. And I wanted to bring something to your attention because actually, as we all know, that people from the Roma community are always kind of left behind and not always able to access services. Children are not at school. Women will never speak out and ask for help. And actually, something that Esther touched upon, actually the roles and the paradigm have affected people like never before. We have seen that actually where people are living on traveller sites or living, on makeup campsites around England, people have been struggling financially. They didn't have access to electricity, and that was not picked up. So we have seen some real violations of human rights against really marginalised groups. We've also seen that actually it's hard to engage with the Roma and the traveller community in the UK. We've also seen that hard to reach communities like the BAME community, that's the Black and ethnic minority communities. And we've also seen that over the uptake now with the pandemic vaccine that we're trying to get out there, and people are really, really worried about what is going on. And I think that we've got to take some real sort of soul searching and look at what can we do. And the thing is that we all have the same rights to be treated with respect and dignity. We have a right to be having the same choices and rights as anybody else. And I think that we need to address some of these issues and really tackle these issues as we're coming out of the pandemic. And we need local authorities to fund NGOs and support organisations that are working on the ground. Because actually, when we're thinking about the global reset, and when I'm sort of talking to the World Economic Forum or to the UN or other organisations, sadly, everyone seems to be focusing on the reset being financial. They're focusing on, oh, let's get our businesses going again. Let's get things back to normal. And, and that is great to get the economy going. But actually, we cannot ignore the shadow pandemics. Home is not a safe place for every single child. We have seen, young people being exploited, getting involved in county lines, young people being groomed and sexually exploited. And schools were able to pick up on some of those warning signs where children may be neglected, where a child may not have been fed properly. In the 21st century, it's been soul destroying to watch that actually there are so many families where they're not even having a meal to go to bed at night, and that actually they are struggling to make ends meet. And that has got worse where people have lost their jobs. Women have been affected by this pandemic so much, like disproportionately, like never before. The World Economic Forum a couple of weeks ago spoke that actually the pandemic has put women back 36 years for equality. We were already over 130 something years before, and now we're like over 150 years before we're going to be paid equally and get that equality back in the workplace. So I think it's really important that women like myself, who are in positions of privilege and power, who are able to help people, that we send the elevator back down and we support other people. that we lift other people off that sticky floor and tackle the social economic barriers that are affecting people globally, that we look at actually supporting our next generation, the class of 2020 and the class of 2021, who have been affected like never before. The class of 21 now don't know if they're coming out with the grades that they thought they were. Young people are not getting apprenticeships. And all those human rights of these people are being affected like never before. They are disproportionately being affected. Those inequalities that were here before have come to the surface like never before. We might be all in the same storm, but I can assure you we are not in the same boat. Most people are in a dinghy that's got a lot of holes in and they're trying to make that survive. And some people are in the yachts and stuff like that. And it's really frustrates me when I hear people say to me, oh, well, you know, the pandemic's an equalizer, it's doing that. And it isn't, because in Africa, people don't have access to the right healthcare. They never had access before the pandemic. It's actually got worse. So we really do need to look at some of these inequalities. And we're into the decade of action to achieve the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And I know that we're not going to be able to achieve most of those goals, because actually a lot of those things about trying to educate people, lift people out of poverty, people have ended up back into poverty further. And we'd like I've said about the domestic violence, the shadow pandemic, and around mental health crisis, people feeling isolated, losing their jobs, losing their identity, losing their roles. But we need to look at empowering people. We need to look at helping people, and the health authority, the local authority and NGOs have to work in partnership to support victims. And we need to support people to manage their mental health and their emotional health and their well-being, because actually the world is on a pressure cooker and it's erupting and the whistle's been going for weeks and months. And we need to really try and take the steam out of the situation, and we need to address these issues. And it's great that we are leading the way with vaccinating, and we're looking at trying to do those things. But actually we also have to look at the other issues that are affecting people. And I always say to people, we have to look at everyone as an individual, treat people with respect and dignity, and everyone has rights to the services. It should not be that actually the one that can afford it has the access to those services. We really do need to level that playing field, because if we don't, we're going to go back even more. And, we're never going to be able to achieve the real goals that we wanted to promote equality, to address those inequalities. So I think that, it's great to hear from all the speakers. And I am really sorry that I have to slip away in 5 minutes because I've got to jump onto another event. But, you are doing great work, Danny, and all the work that you're doing in Africa and in Ireland. And, and we've seen these inequalities in Ireland and in Africa before the pandemic, and they have just come to the surface. And I know Esther and all the other speakers may have addressed some of those issues. But the question to me is now to you all is, what can we do in partnership? How can we collaborate and actually address these inequalities? And how can we actually start working towards leveling that playing field? And actually, when we talk about the global reset, that we're not just looking at it for financial, but we're actually looking at it for a humanitarian side of it, that we're looking at no child is left behind, that every child gets an education, every child gets a meal, that every woman is treated with respect and dignity. And actually, it's so important to see people, that we lobby our governments and we address those issues. And we need social workers to recognize the signs and not be just scared of pandemics about the COVID going into people's homes, because actually home is not safe for every single child. And we need to be aware of that, and we need to be able to call out such bad practices. It is so important that we call out the wrongdoings, step up and lead from the front and make the change that we want to see. And I just want to say thank you to everyone. Thank you again to Danny. And please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. And if anyone has any questions, please send them to Danny, or you can send them to me directly and I will answer them. And I just want to say well done again. It's a great conference. And, it is really, really important that we all are, sailing in the right direction, whatever boat we're in, that we're coming out of this storm together and actually helping other people. Please do not look down at somebody unless you're helping them up.
Well said.
Thank you.
Well said, Mandy. Thank you very much for that, Mandy. I know from following your Twitter feed now, I think there's some cases you're helping people that are experiencing human rights abuses at the minute as well.
Yeah, well, there is.
Good luck with
and
that.
I think it is. I know. Thank you. And it is just a crazy time at the moment are thinking, oh my God, I'm working from home, it should be easier, but it isn't, because actually your diary, and people just lock things in your diary. But just want to say thank you again. Please feel free to connect. And Danny, if there is any particular questions, please reach out to me and I will answer them for you. Thank you again. Good luck with the event, everybody.
Thank you, Mandy. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.